Hello, my name is True Moore, and this is my presentation of the American Revolution paper slide. It will explain the sequence of events which led up to the American Revolution. First, with England's motivations for colonization. The English motivations for colonization were for religious freedoms, economic growth, political freedoms, empire building, farming land, social changes to spread Christianity, and strategic bases. The motivators for English colonization were greed, religious persecutions, the economy was failing, and Spanish tensions. The first 13 colonies were all on the East Coast, and they were Delaware, Georgia, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, Massachusetts Bay, North and South Carolina, Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island, Maryland, and New Hampshire. The differences between the colonies were the northern colonies were founded for religion, and they relied on fishing and lumber. They had bad soil and rocky terrains. And the middle and the southern colonies had great soil, heavy farming, and they used slaves. The Navigation Acts were a series of acts designed to get money from the colonies for England. And they were major factors in the start of the American Revolution, and they required that all trade between England and the colonies be carried on English or colonial vessels, and it mostly targeted the Dutch. The French and Indian War was really a war between England and France, and it was from between 1756 to 1763. And it began due to the French expansion in the West. And the Indians fought on both sides, and England won due to having more money, and they gained Canada and Florida. And Americans got stronger from the English payments, and they acquired fighting skills. King George III was king over all the major events during the American Revolution. He reigned from 1738 to 1820, and he ruled for 59 years, and he was very religious. He angered the colonists with the Stamp Act and the Intolerable Acts. He was king during the Boston Tea Party, and he won the French and Indian War, but lost the American Revolution, and he slowly went insane. The Proclamation Act of 1763 tried to stop American westward expansion, and it was issued by King George III. It prohibited all settlements west of the Appalachian Mountains. It rescinded previous land grants, and it angered the colonists who wanted to expand westward. The Sugar Act was just a different way for England to tax the colonies, and it replaced the Molasses Act of 1733. It was a tax on molasses, coffee, and French wine. It was strict enforcement by the British Navy, and it created special courts to prosecute colonists, and it increased the price of rum and other products, and it drove America into a recession. Colonists openly protested the British for the first time. The Stamp Act was the first time the colonies questioned England's authority. The first tax was levied on Americans by the British. It was a tax on every piece of printed paper. The colonists thought it was unconstitutional and believed only their representatives could tax Americans. Colonists formed mobs to stop the tax collectors. The Sons of Liberty were the first organization created to oppose England, and their motto was, "No taxation without representation." They were a secret society of 13 colonies, and they protected the colonists' rights and fought taxation. And they hated the Stamp Act. Some members were Samuel Adams, Benedict Arnold, John Hancock, Paul Revere, and Patrick Henry. The Boston Massacre became a major rallying cry for fighting the British, and it was held on March 5th, 1770. And American patriots began protesting British occupation. There were 5 colonists who were killed, the first deaths of the American Revolution, and the Boston Massacre became a patriotic holiday. The Tea Act was the nail in the coffin for relations between England and the colonies. It was passed by Parliament on May 10, 1773. It meant to help the East India Trading Company, and it gave the East India Trading Company a monopoly on tea. It was the final straw for American colonists, and it sparked the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was one of the first organized rebellions against England, and it was meant to protest the Tea Act of 1773. And Samuel Adams and the Sons of Liberty dressed as Mohawk Indians, and they dumped 340 chests of tea in the Boston Harbor. In response, Britain passed the Intolerable Acts. Common Sense by Thomas Paine laid down the foundations for the Revolution, and it was published in 1776. It was an instant bestseller. It gained independence from England, and it sparked arguments for a democracy, and it stopped all England's abuse. The Enlightenment thinkers of the American Revolution set the foundation for how a new country should be governed where no one ruler had the power. Thomas Paine wrote The American Crisis and Common Sense, and it made people support the American Revolution. John Locke was a philosopher and a physician who influenced Thomas Jefferson. The signing of the Declaration of Independence is the basis for our July 4th holiday we celebrate each year. And the authors were Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Robert Livingston, and Roger Sherman. The 5 parts of the Declaration were the preamble, the human rights, charges against the king, statement of separation, and signatures justification for independence. The Revolutionary War gave hope to many countries ruled by dictators that they too might be ruled by the people. And it was Britain versus the 13 colonies. It lasted from 1775 through 1783. George Washington was the American colonist leader, and William Howe was the leader of the British enforcements. Loyalists were colonists who remained loyal to Britain, and the British advantages were they had more money, they had the best navy, they had a proven army, and they had the Indians. The American advantages were they had home court advantage, and they had the belief in a cause, and they were passionate, and America was very big, and they had the French support. And during the war, Britain failed to defeat the northern colonies, and France intervened, and British support waned British defeat in South America, and they win independence. The Treaty of Paris ended England's colonial empire in North America, and it was signed in 1783. It was between the United States and Great Britain. It ended the Revolutionary War, and it established American independence. It was signed in Paris by John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Jay. The Articles of Confederation were the first written constitution of the United States. They were signed in 1777. It was the first constitution of the United States. It wasn't signed by 13 colonies until 1781. It tried to establish a basic form of government, and states had the most power. The United States Constitution is a living, breathing document. It was signed in 1787 at the Constitutional Convention, and it established a national government. It instituted basic laws and rights. It created a strong government, which had 3 branches: executive, judicial, and legislative. No single branch was to have all the power, and it centralized the nation's power away from the states. George Washington is probably the most famous American to have ever lived. The election of George Washington was in 1789, and he is considered the father of our country. He was the commander of revolutionary forces, and he helped frame the Constitution. He was unanimously elected by the Electoral College. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and learned a lot about the American Revolution.